Hello, kiddies. Meet the Joker.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Joey Galvez here at the MCDC podcast. So this week, we actually might be doing a second edition of DC-only books, only because we had a really cool special one this week. It was Batman number 50, and I'm going to call this the Batgate edition. We're going to have Bill Beer from the Too Old Too New podcast on today, and we're also going to have Chris from Chris and Reggies Cosmic Tredmill. So we're going to be talking about Batman number 50, and we've got a few other books as well. We've got Justice League number 3, Man of Steel number 6, and Catwoman number 1. And obviously, Catwoman kind of goes with Batman number 50, and we're going to talk about that on the podcast today. And we hope that you guys enjoy, and let's have some fun with this one. Alright, let's get right into some books here. Actually, I know everybody's wondering why I'm calling this the Batgate special. It's probably, I'm sure you know this already, but it's because somebody at the New York Times spoiled Batman number 50, and Tom King was pretty upset about it. He was all over Twitter this last week talking about it, and I was just kind of laughing about it, and I was like, that's kind of funny. But they spoiled it with the headline, and that everybody's all up in arms about it. Everybody who loves this is actually going to be very disappointed. If you haven't read it already, I'm sure you're going to read it and listen to this podcast, and you're going to be pretty upset about it if you really are a huge fan of Tom King's Batman, and you were looking forward to this wedding special. But we're not going to be talking about that right now. We're going to be talking about Justice League number 3. So let's get right into it.
Oh my gosh, Dad, can I get my henna like Jon Stewart's?
Alright, so Justice League number 3. It really does look like Jon Stewart has henna all over him, which was kind of funny. Thanks to my daughter here for helping me out with that. So Justice League number 3, it's the Totality Part 3. So just in as a first glance, I'm going to say the artwork was pretty awesome here. The overall story was actually, it wasn't as bad as the first couple. There was a couple places that I sat here and thought, what the heck is that? Like where they blew up the moon, we kind of get a little bit of answers, and we find out that there's some stuff here. I'll get into that later on when we talk about the book here a little bit more, but there is some pretty cool covers and artwork and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and talk about who is on the book here. We've got Scott Snyder as the writer, Jorge Jimenez as the artist, and Alejandro Sanchez on colors. And so we open up the book here, and we see Sinestro, and we get a little bit of a background with Sinestro here, and how they say that he's a intergalactic anthropologist, and it says perhaps he's the greatest anthropologist in the universe. So, and I guess that's pretty cool because we get a little bit of depth of this character, right? And we see what he's about and how he he's searching this planet here, and he's looking for something. And we see something really cool here. We see two different symbols here. We see a symbol that we saw in the first couple of books here, number 1 and number 2. We saw that same symbol that we saw on that Martian Manhunter's table, that he brought everybody into that mental boardroom, right? And that's what we see here. We also see a different symbol here right above that one on what looks like to be some kind of stone, and it looks like it's a little raised up a little bit. And he talks about Umbrax, and we'll find out about who Umbrax is here and what Umbrax is later on. So it talks about that kind of stuff here, and then we flip the page here, and we're back in we're back with Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman here, right? And we got Jon Stewart, and he's looking pretty evil with all that fancy little henna all over his face and hands, and we see that he's using his ultraviolet, his invisible, I forget what they call it. I'll see. I really gotta write some notes instead of just kind of winging it. But let's see. So he gets he uses this ring as with the constructs, but these are different kinds of constructs here. They are take the form as people or beings of some sort, and they start fighting the Justice League, the part of the Justice League that are still left over here. And we see, and there's a voiceover. We saw at the end of the last book there that there was a voiceover, and they were kind of doing that thing, right? So now we see this voiceover here, and they're talking about Wonder Woman and her lasso, and it says it's called a lasso, but sometimes Diana thinks of it as a wire cutter. I don't understand why they say that, but I guess they're kind of giving us a little bit. So it says the heart is like clay to her, imperfect and muddy. There is no lie that cannot be sliced apart by that lariat. So I guess that's where they're trying to get this wire cutter and use that in there. I don't know if that kind of worked for me or not, but I kind of understood a little bit of what they got there, but that was a little weird. And that was one of those things that I kind of got hung up on. And she screams at him, "You will see the truth." And it says, and the constructs are nothing more than imaginary. But then these imaginary things are pretty powerful, because he just says no, and this construct just kind of blocks her and knocks her out of the way, and it's still in the form of some kind of being, right? Now we look over to the next panel here, and Barry Allen is fighting a couple of these constructs, right? It says, even with the Speed Force compromise, Barry Allen moves faster than the brain's synaptic energy. And he says, dang it, Green Lantern, snap out of it. And then we see again, it says, too fast for the constructs, be they made of will, rage, hope, greed, or any common emotion. But then it hits him, and then he gets knocked out by one of these big, huge constructs. It says, these are not constructs made of common emotions. And then it says, Arthur Curry realizes it first, and he can communicate with the ancient aquatic brain, and what he senses here shakes him to the core. Primitive impulses have taken hold of Jon Stewart's mind, raw, cruel, and deadly. And says Arthur reaches out, tries to influence him, tries to find a link. And here's another one that kind of threw me off here, because Jon Stewart here says, go fish, Aquaman. And I thought that was pretty cheesy, but anyway, it says, now you die because the flesh is weak, and he creates a big, huge monster out of these constructs, and he says, you hear me, flesh is weak. So, and then we see a boom tube open up, and here comes Cyborg coming through that, and Cyborg says, no argument there, right? And then he kind of whammies Jon Stewart here with something that looks very similar to some kind of sound wave, or some kind of wave of something. And we'll find out exactly what he used against him later on. So he whammies him, and Jon Stewart gets knocked out. He's laid out on the floor, and they're gonna figure out what's going on with him. So now we are back inside the totality with Superman and Martian Manhunter. And at this point, those suits that they had on look like they are being disintegrated, or I'm not quite sure. It's not very clear that's kind of what it looks like though here. but they're fighting some kind of creatures, a lizard and a vulture, but they are like super like mutated and things of that nature, right? So and they kind of talk about that. It says they're mutating, the totality's doing something to them, and like it's reaching into their minds and de-evolving them. He says it seems that the totality wants to draw out their basic survival instincts to protect itself, and without our suits, I can feel it happening on a molecular molecular level to us. And he asks Batman, "It feels like you're losing in there. What's going on? Are you losing?" And Batman says, "I'm hooked directly into your nervous system, Kent. Ask me that again, and you'll start dancing, and we've all seen your dancing." So, I don't know. They're just trying to make a joke in this moment, but cool. All right. And then he says, "Hot girl, I'm nearly through the first mutagen cluster. How about you?" And she says, "I thought I was, but they keep coming. It's strange. It's almost like they're bypassing the brain matter and coming straight for me." And it says, doesn't make sense. And he yells at her and tells her, use the white dwarf pulse. And she says that pulse will kill millions of brain cells. And he says John Jones can regrow them as fast as he can. He loses them. He says he can't regrow you. But if they grow back mutated, and she kind of gets interrupted by Batman, and he says now. And she does it, and it kind of takes them out. Now Batman says these things will regroup farther in the brain where it is hardest to fight them off. Kent, are you sure that they were targeting you specifically? And she says, I've been in enough wars to recognize an ambush. And she tells Batman to stop pretending that we know what we're up against. We're walking straight toward an energy older than the universe. There's no telling what dangers are lurking in here. And he says, adjust point, Hawk Girl, proceed with caution. And we see Lex Luthor here, and he just kind of chuckles a little bit, and he says, yes. Now we are back in the Hall of Justice, and John Stewart is waking up, and we've got Mr. Terrific now among the Flash, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. And they're talking about what happened. They were asking him, what's going on with this? I was in deep space when I got caught a wind of an unidentifiable energy signal, and I traced that here and found you. And Wonder Woman says, now, you need to talk to us, John. What was that energy you were wielding? He says, it's called the invisible spectrum. And this is where I should have written my notes down. I knew it. But I didn't write anything down. So it's called the invisible spectrum. And he says, while you control the emotional spectrum, the invisible spectrum controls you. And we see that the Flash here is asking, he's like, how come we've never heard of this before with the whole crayon box of lanterns? I mean, where did this come from? And now John Stewart gives us a little background about what happened with him and John Jones here. He says, you weren't here, Barry, but years ago I battled with the League against the anti-life on a planet called Xanshi. I was with John, but his fear of fire, I thought he was slowing me down, so I left him behind. I was rash, rushed, and the planet died. It was my fault, millions of lives gone. Afterwards, I searched for anything that would help me bring Xanshi back. I found a book describing a spectrum beyond the one we knew, and a warning. The book was one man's mission on to make sure it was never unlocked. And Wonder Woman says, whose, John? He says, Sinestro's. And what he described was terrifying. This spectrum, its heart is a living phantom galaxy powered by a sentient black sun called Umbrax. Umbrax moves unseen through space, drawn toward planets where self-destructive forces are strongest usually primitive outliers. It surrounds these places, animating them with its energy, and then it pulls them into its galaxy. There's no stopping it once it's locked onto a planet. And they say the source wall breaking it's opened the door. That's what kicked things off for sure, but there's more. Sinestro wrote that invisible spectrum was tied to 6 other hidden forces of the universe, all of them locked by some cosmic stasis that had to be accessed first. And the Flash says, the still force, you're telling me it's real? And he says, I wasn't sure if any of this was real, but until apparently it took over my brain and it just tried to kill you. And here's where we find out what Cyborg used against him. He said, about that, I used irradiated ozone to cosmically sunblock you out of your trance. But the energy is getting stronger. So here in this moment, I believe that they are letting us know that it's getting stronger because they won't be able to use the same exact way to stop Umbrax later on when they try to fight him off or fight it off when it takes over the next planet, right? And he says, Sinestro must be feeding Umbrax primitive planet somewhere at the outer rim. If he feeds it enough, it could become too powerful to fight, and if he brings it here, then he could do it to every living being what he did to me. He'd have the most powerful core in the universe. And the Flash here says, divide and conquer. You find the living galaxy, we'll go after the still force. I should be able to triangulate. And here's a part that kind of got me too, is like, did somebody just fall asleep on their keyboard here while they were typing or something? Because he says there's a word here, and maybe I just never read it before, and this is a real thing, but it seems to me like somebody just fell asleep on their keyboard. Anyway, so they're trying to find him, and Arthur Curry here, Aquaman, he says that's impossible. That section of ocean is toxic to all life. It will erode any metal too. It's a nowhere zone. And then Wonder Woman says, well, let's go to nowhere. And now we are back in the totality with Superman and Martian Manhunter. He says, look, Superman, the realm is changing and it's opening up. Superman says, let's slow it down, let's take it easy kind of thing. What's going on there, Batman? What's it like? And Batman says, the mutagen cells are slowing a bit, but they're more mysterious. Indecipherable, you're right, we should be wary. And Hawkgirl does say, she's like, this does seem like the calm before the storm. And it seems we've made it through the protective ring and reached an inner sanctum. We must be getting close, John Jones says. He says, John, look. John looks and sees something that looks very similar to the source wall and those creatures that were there, right? And he says, these beings, they're like the giants trapped on the source wall. We've never fully understood what they are there, why they are there, who they are, their stories. I sense life in them. And Superman says, just watch out. We're not sure what this is, kind of, it could be a trap kind of thing. And he says, don't you see? This totality is trying to talk to us. Yeah, I know it. I can read their minds. And he says, slow down, John. He says, no, we can't, Superman. This is what the totality requires from us. A leap of faith. A belief that there is something good at the heart of it. And Hawkgirl says, the faces do look familiar. And then you see Lex Luthor. He says, that's right, Martian. Don't slow down. Do it. And he says, I have to know, Cal. And here we see the Martian's mind reaches out to the boundless alien intelligence before him. He shapes it with evangelical earnestness to turn the noise into images he can understand. He seeks comfort, hope, understanding beyond the veil. And now we see a young John Jones here. another young man here. They're kind of giving each other window love here because they're, you know what I mean. And he says he receives something else entirely. He says, no, what have I seen? He kind of backs up a little bit, and he sees one of these giants open up their eyes, right? And Superman says, John, get away from there. It's another level of defense. And this thing says, you, the first abomination, you must be destroyed. And Lex Luthor says, oh, it's too late to get away from this alien. Now we are back with Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman, and they are in this underwater area in that nowhere zone, and they see an underwater base, and this is not eroding the metal. So he says, look at that place. He says, and then we got good old Barry Allen making jokes here, right? He says, maybe I'll stay in the invisible jet, nice and hidden. And Wonder Woman says, you do realize that they could see you, they just can't see the jet. He says, why the heck would it work like that? I've always wondered that too, guys, just saying. Why is the jet invisible and they aren't? So weird. So now they are inside this base, and they say, you know, the designs here are practically Amazonian. What on earth is this place? And Aquaman says, the technology is Atlantean, but outdated, hundreds of years old. I don't know how this is possible, but I don't like it. And neither does Barry Allen. So, and he says, I thought I knew everything there was to know about the Speed Force. Now I'm not sure of anything. We need answers fast. He says, look at these tubes. There's something inside. And it looks like there's tubes standing upright, and it's got some kind of liquid inside of them, and there's somebody inside there. And Wonder Woman says, be careful, Flash. And Flash kind of wipes off the dust of these tubes here. He says, it looks like a white Martian, but the facial structure, it's more primitive than the ones we've been seen before. More animalistic. And then this thing kind of just cracks its head against the window there, and there's a crack. And he says, like, oh man, you're ugly. Good thing you're in there, all pickled. Now there's a crack because one of these things kind of headbutted the window there, and they start to break out, and these three get into formation. Now we're back with Superman and John Jones, and they are about to fight this big, huge giant, right? Now we get this voiceover, and it says, how many of Luthor's plans have failed over the years, and yet this one will work. He's known it ever since that basement in Kansas, even during the most lunatic parts, sneaking into Superman's system during the fight with Croc, for example. Or that he is about to try. He will win because it is true. Life is blood and teeth and nothing more. All you have to do is look behind the skin, and there it is. And we see Hot Girl here, and she says, guys, my comms just went down. What's going on? And it says, we see somebody kind of crouching behind her, and the next page here it says, and the voiceover continues, and it says, the monster lurking deep inside, waiting to pounce. He almost has to laugh, but not yet. So this person kind of snuck on board and snuck behind Hawk Girl here, right? Now we are back with John Stewart and Cyborg on what's left of the moon at the original watchtower. And somebody says, I can't believe the moon is really gone. How long do you think the geoforce can hold off the tides, keep gravity intact? So this is something that I was talking to Bill Beer about, because this was kind of crazy when we saw this happen in the first issue there, when everything broke up on the planet, all the land broke apart, and then they had to blow up the moon, and I was like, whoa. We need the moon to live. We need the moon to have gravity, and that's everybody. And not only did everybody probably most likely died because all land on Earth broke apart, but then when this moon happened, everybody just kind of gravity doesn't exist no more. So I don't know. That's kind of weird, right? So. And then they make this big huge problem with the moon, and it seemed very small. That's so weird. That's a big, huge deal to me. Anyway, they move on and they say, not long enough there. There's the watchtower, and the watchtower's still intact. If we access my old tech, we might be able to track Umbrax. That's all they care about, tracking Umbrax. But dude, all these people probably just died on Earth. Oh well, I guess. It says, now I can feel it growing stronger, like it's connected to me now. I can't believe I let it get me, Vic. I'm stronger than that. I should have been able to keep it at bay. And Vic says, yeah, well, sometimes being strong isn't about willpower, buddy. Sometimes it's about letting things in, letting people see what you don't always want them to see. I should know. Speaking of unseen things, though, it's strange the power is so strong, but there's no sign of the galaxy anywhere near the outer rim. So where the heck did he take it? And we see a big, huge ultraviolet boom and light blow up the computer here. And somebody off panel says, wouldn't you like to know? Now we flip the page and then we see Sinestro there hovering over them, right? And they say, why are you doing this? You're the one who helped lock the invisible spectrum away in the first place. Why would you set Umbrax free? And he says, I wasn't going to, my dear boy. The truth is I came to that lonely sector to lock it away again. But when I arrived, Umbrax had already slipped away, bonds broken by the activation of the Still Force. I was prepared to track it to some primitive system and lock it away again until I saw where it had gone. So help me find it and stop it. Be a hero for once, Jon Stewart says. And then Sinestro laughs at him and says, in folktales, a hero is someone who is changed by truth, and I was as you will be. And he says, where is it? And he says, as I wrote, it is drawn to worlds with the darkest, most self-destructive energy. And he lifts up his hand and he shows his ring there, and it's activated. And he says, now connect and see where it went first, Stewart. And Jon Stewart grabs his head and he's going crazy, gets whammied by Sinestro's ring here. And he says, no. Vic says, John, what's happening? And Sinestro says, he's seeing the truth, Cyborg. What everyone will see soon, that the world that drew Umbrax to it, and we flip the page and he says, was yours. See, the invisible spectrum is already here, and Earth just joined its ranks. So this was a really cool visual here, this last page. We see some kind of ultraviolet, almost planet-looking thing, and it's super, super huge in comparison to the Earth or to the moon, wherever they are, and it's engulfing the Earth. So and this was pretty cool because I saw this and I was like, this is awesome. It looks pretty cool, pretty wicked here, right? And now we see that this is the last page, and it says, next, this solar system ain't big enough for the two of them. So we're going to see that in the next issue here and what happens here. So overall, this book was actually kind of cool. I liked the idea of it. There was a couple of places that was kind of like I could have done without that kind of a thing. As for a rating, I will probably give this one a 7 because, it was the better of the three, and I did like the artwork. The dialogue wasn't too horrible. And, I always love the colors. The colors are always awesome and amazing. So I think that's a pretty good rating there for this book. So that's going to be my book here, Justice League number 3, The Totality Part 3. So let's see what else we got here.
Dad, you should talk about your brony stuff later, because I kind of want to watch Drop Dead Diva. So...
My little pony, my little pony. Ah, my little pony. I used to wonder what friendship could be. My little pony, until you all shared its magic with me.
You gotta love your kids, right? So let's jump right into Man of Steel number 6. All right, this is number 6 of 6, and we got Bendis Fabok, and Sinclair on the book, right? We've been talking about these guys for quite some time, so I don't think I'm going to have to break it down to you and let you guys know exactly what they're doing. We all know what they're doing, right? So we get Wordy McWord Pants here getting his word on. And we get tons of word bubbles here in the first page. But guess what? We get a little insight of what's going on here. So I'm not really going to go back and forth here and tell you guys everything and read word for word. But, John here kind of shows his, he wants to go. He shows his desire of going with his grandfather, right, Jor-El, because he shows up and he wants to take John here on a Kryptonian quest, I guess you would say, right? So John kind of wants to go because he's seen an alternate version of himself where he's out of control and his solar flare power just kind of kills people, and he really doesn't want that to happen. So he's like, I need to go with him to hone in on my powers and fix my powers. There's one moment where he gets really upset at himself. He's like, the Titans didn't want to take me, the Teen Titans want to take me because I'm not good enough. I can't control my powers. I don't do anything right. They don't think that I'm good enough. And Clark Kent gives him a little pep talk here and stuff like that. He said, they rejected me because something's wrong with me. So Jor-El's gonna take him and kind of do this thing, and he kind of extends his hand offer and says, why don't you all come with me? Why don't my son can even kind of benefit from this kind of stuff too. And now we flip the page back and it says Man of Steel finale, right? Woohoo! And then now we see Superman and Rogolzar. They are, I guess, supposedly in the core of the universe, and Rogolzar's got this crazy looking device, and he's gonna blow up the Earth because he believes that anywhere that there is a Kryptonian, it needs to be cleansed of Kryptonian. So that just means because there was a Kryptonian living there, then now Earth is no longer good enough to I don't know. And maybe this is that same device that he used to blow up Krypton. I'm sure that's what it is, right? So they kind of fight back and forth, and they kind of do their thing, and they kind of Superman here is kind of, talking. You're very sincere in your hate for me just because of who you think I am. The sincerity, I feel sad for you. And they kind of fight here and things like that. And he asks him what that symbol is on his staff. And now he's kind of thinking to himself. He says, Wonder Woman was right. He is a creature of war. I can't overpower him, and I can't outfight him. All I can do is stay ahead of him until I can figure out how to depower him or put him down. But it's getting harder with every passing minute. Fighting in the center of the Earth is hardly the optimum battlefield, and doesn't seem to be bothering him at all. So now I guess they come out of there, and they are in, I guess what you see, Paris, I guess. He says, Paris, Rogolzar is 4 seconds behind me. If I'm lucky, and I haven't been that lucky, how do I destroy a planet-destroying device strong enough to survive the Earth's core? And he's taking this thing into outer space. And he says, I just have to admit, and here's that voiceover thing again, right? We see a lot of this stuff going on. But this time, this is a flashback, and I believe this is Jor-El, or this is that whole interaction here. And it says, just admit, you don't have all the answers, I'm your father. And then they're Lois and Clark, and they're all kind of going back and forth, and they're, sweetie, listen to us, something is off, something's wrong. And, if I don't figure out what's wrong with me, maybe I'll just grow up to be Superman and kill everybody by accident. So John's still kind of doing this thing, right? He says, because I didn't listen to the one person who actually seems to understand what's going on with me and is offering me a solution better than just stand and be miserable and hope for whatever. And Lois says here, where do you think you're taking him, Jor-El? Where exactly? And Jor-El kind of shows him where he's going to take him. And he says, across the galaxy. John needs perspective. Travel and experience will provide him with the tools he needs to thrive and survive. Here, lovely as it can be, this primitive planet is limiting to someone like him. And this is where he extends his offer. Another option, you all come with me, my son. The Superman could learn a thing or two as well. And he's like, yes, and then Lois and Clark are just like, oh, I got a job. Yeah, they got a couple kind of thing. So they're going back and forth. And we see kind of this throughout the story here, that they kind of go back and forth, right? Now we see Rogolzar and Superman kind of fighting over this device here, and as we see this kind of thing going back and forth, where Lois and Clark and John are talking, we are seeing Rogolzar and Superman fighting, kind of a thing. And if I didn't like anything else about this whole entire run, I did kind of like that kind of thing. And it kind of starts to make sense now how it's working out. The first book, second book, it didn't really feel like it worked out, but now towards the end, it kind of feels like it's working out, where we get that, those flashbacks, and we see the flashbacks, the thoughts and the words of that flashback, kind of intertwining with the battle and reality and things of that happening here. So now we see Lois and Clark, and they're talking about, she's gonna call her lawyer. He's like, lawyer, why? And she's like, I got a book deal, and they want me to, it's gonna, the first one's gonna be kind of like a tell all about my greatest and worst at the Daily Planet, but the second one I can choose myself. And she says, this will be the second. I'll go, and this experience is gonna be my second, and I'll talk about this. And now she's like, I'm gonna go, kind of thing. And Superman, Clark, still hasn't decided, I guess, himself. And now she's kind of deciding, I'm gonna go, kind of thing. And if my son's not gonna, if he's gonna go, I'm gonna go. So, so now we're doing this, and you finally see Clark kind of get really upset. He's stop, everybody, just stop. And I'm sure he doesn't want his family to get split up, and he doesn't, So I guess they assume that everybody's gonna go, kind of thing. And he says, now he grabs Lois and he flies off with her. And he said, and she's telling, baby, I'm upset too, but this is, as much as I hate it, it's been decided for us. And he says, Lois, we can't let that man rip into our family on his whim. And she says, what else would you have me do, Clark? And, here comes John flying up there. He says, well, now I feel bad. And we here we go with that intertwining again, because we see them, Rogolzar and Superman fighting over this world destroying device. And now they're kind of like, and they say, no, John, you're fine. You're never wrong to express stuff like this. I want this for both of you, kind of thing. And now we see Rogolzar. He's Superman's got Rogolzar in a headlock, and he's kind of punching him, taking him out, kind of hoping to take him out, kind of thing. And they talk about that when John was born, they kind of knew that they were gonna have to make choices like this and kind of thing, because he couldn't, he's half human, half Kryptonian, so they knew something was gonna have to happen. They were gonna have to hone in on his powers some way or somehow. And now they kind of have this thing, this opportunity arising, and it's staring them in their face. So, now Lois is like, if we're gonna go out there, and if I don't like what's happening there, I'll call you. You come pick us up, and you can sock your dad in the nose, kind of thing. And he says, and now we kind of see this intertwining again, but now it's the reality kind of coming in, and Superman kind of figures out how to take Rogolzar out. And he says, suddenly it occurs to me, I'm going about this all wrong. The longer I drag this fight out, the better his chances. I thought I could maybe tire him out or cut off his power source, but I am the one who... And then Kara comes in, and he says, Kara, I love her. And she finds him, and she kind of jumps in on the fight. Rogolzar loses his weapon. They go after him, and then now we go back, and we see that the family is talking to Jor-El again. Now, I guess they've decided that Lois and John are going to go with Jor-El, and Jor-El's giving him a device to kind of, here we go. You can, if you you could talk to us through this device. And he's like, yeah, I know what it is, anyway, they kind of talk about this stuff, and then now they're going to go, right? And Kara's got this device under her arm, and she's watching Superman and Rogolzar fight, and she kind of has this thing, and once Superman gets clear, she uses it on Rogolzar, right? And guess what it is, guys? It's the Phantom Zone device. And now we see Jor-El, Clark, and Lois, and they're talking it out some more. And they're kind of hashing out the details kind of thing here. Jor-El does say he's all, this is just the beginning of what you are capable of, both you and your son. I know it as deeply as I know anything. So he's kind of he's like you can use your potential. You have more potential than you know, and you can use it, but you don't use it to your full capacity here. Now we see Rogolzar is being sucked into the Phantom Zone, and as Superman says, my ego twists a little bit, that she shut this down before I could, but that ego doesn't matter. I wasn't considering the Phantom Zone because it's only a Band-Aid, and now he's got Rogolzar's weapon there, and he's looking at the symbol on it. And if I were my son and I saw this, it almost looks like a Pokeball. Just saying. And he says it doesn't even give us answers. So now we see Lois, and I guess she just got off the phone with Perry. He said, "How did Perry take it?" She says that he fired me, and he's like, "Yeah, he said fire. I was listening." She says, "Oh well, I'll just have to have my cushy book deal until I get back." And Clark's like, "Don't go. Help me convince John to stay." And she says they're leaving with or without us. So she figures, John's gonna go with or without us. I may as well go too, so that one of his parents is gonna be there. And she says John's not fully cooked yet, and we have to do this for him. And he says, "Thank you for mentioning that this one is not one of the many scenarios that I find myself in that I can't punch my way out of." She says, "Only because I couldn't find an organic way to fit it into the conversation." And Superman kind of gives her something. And he says, "This will help protect you," and it's his suit. She says he says it'll protect you. Also, the symbol means something in certain parts of the galaxy. And she says, "Will it fit?" And he says, "Just touch the belt buckle and it'll fit itself to you." And she says, "What are you going to wear?" He said, "I'll find something." So obviously he found something, right? But now, it says, "Kara, we can't just toss everything. We don't like into the Phantom Zone. Not everything, but him, this monster. He says he confessed to blowing up Krypton, and that according to Krypton laws would sentence him to life in the Phantom Zone." He says, "Oh yeah, and he destroyed Kandor with his bare hands. So on behalf of all Kryptonians," and you get in, Brian Michael Bendis likes seeing his characters cuss here because we got some profanities being said here. And it says, the only thing I think of is them saying F him. And that's what I think it says here. So now it looks like they are somewhere near the Fortress of Solitude, and says, "But we still need to find out the truth about Rogolzar. We have to." And she says, "I agree, so I'm going to do just that. I'm going to leave for a while. I have to." And he says, "How?" She says, "I have to chase these clues back where they came from, and I'm going to find out the real truth about Krypton and us. I'm going to find out who else knew about him, it or us. And if it ends up it's all a lie and crazy got under my skin, well, then that's it." And he says, "I don't think he's lying." And they're both shooting their laser eyes at something. And he says, "How long are you going to go for?" She says, "I'll be back." They'll be back too. I guess she's talking about John and Lois there. And he says, "I can't call Lois and John. The deep space communicator broke in the fortress battle. They think I can, but I can't. They think I'm just not calling. And she says, "If I see them," and she says, "I have no idea where in the galaxy they are." Now we see the Green Lantern, Cyborg, and Flash here, and he says, "Is it ready? Please let it be ready." And they're doing a little I guess funeral or something for Kandor there, and they got many different little those little domes that Kandor was in, and they're setting them off into the sky, kind of like a lantern kind of thing, you know, when people do those lantern things, and goes up into the sky. So they're doing that, and now we see that that Lois and John are jumping into the ship, and they're going, and they finally do leave, right? So they head off, and and we kind of, you know, we see them giving their little pleasantries there, and stuff like. So now Superman is there all by himself, and it looks like he is going into John's room, and he's just kind of, you know, reminiscing about the times they've had. Now we are back in Metropolis in the firehouse, and a kid comes in and he says, "Excuse me," and she says, "You can't be back here, kid." He says, "Do you know who I talked to about who's been starting the fires? I saw on the TV that they don't know." She says, "Yeah, kid, that's right. They don't know." He says, "Well, I saw who did it." And he said, "It was Superman. I saw him. I don't know why he did it. I thought he was doing it for a good reason, but on TV they said no. I saw him." And it says, "To be continued in Superman #1 and Action Comics 1001. So this kid saw Superman set the fires. This is pretty wild and crazy because Superman was trying to figure this out. He even brought Batman in to check it out, right? And so we'll see what happens in Superman #1 and Action 1001. So they're gonna take this story and they're gonna keep it going in those books there. So all in all, I think this was the best one out of all of them. I would rather. Somebody had told me before that Brian Michael Bendis writes for the trades, and I definitely see that now, because as an individual, if you were reading these individually, they kind of didn't work as well as they did if you read them all together back to back. So I understand where people come from when they say that. As for a rating, I think I'll probably give this one the highest rating out of all the books, out of all 6. I'm probably going to give this one 7.5 to an 8 because they did tie it up a little bit. I did finally get to find out what's going on with John and Lois, and I do like the artwork. I do like the colors. I never have a problem with the colors. I continue to say that I never have problems with colors, and that's true, and it's going to continue that way. So this book is actually, all in all, it was actually okay. It wasn't the worst. This is going to be Man of Steel #6 of 6. We'll see what happens in Superman #1 and Action Comics 1001. We'll see. Let's see what we got going next. All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Joey here at the MCDC podcast, and today I've got Bill Beer from the Too Old Too New podcast and Chris from Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Tredmill. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing wonderful. So today we're going to be talking about the most anticipated book of this season, right?
Allegedly.
Batman #50. Right, allegedly. So it's Batman #50, and let me give a little blurb about this really quick for you guys, really quick, and then we'll jump right into the book here. So, and it's gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be a little cheesy. So we gather here today to witness the bond between the cat and the bat in unholy matrimony. Well, not really. Along with all those prelude one-shots, I can't help feeling that we were left at the altar. But we got some semi-cool artist pages there during the Dear John letter portions. This extra-sized anniversary issue has me feeling a bit let down. And I don't know about you guys, but it's got me wondering, why always a bridesmaid and never a bride?
Well, there you go.
So, right? So, what was your guys' first take on this? Just,
Well, you go ahead, Bill.
I guess my first take on this is I really haven't been enjoying this run at all. This has definitely not been my favorite run. But I tried to go into this with an open mind. And ultimately I was left disappointed. I mean, there was a lot of good artwork in this issue. There's a lot of very talented artists. But the story for me just falls pretty flat.
Right.
Absolutely.
It was. I feel the same way. What was your take on that, Chris?
Well, you know, I've been looking at reviews for the past few days, and I'm finding that I didn't hate it as much as a lot of folks whose opinions I really respect. I do want to qualify that, though, because I have not really followed this book. I've only read about 4 issues from this run. I read The Button, and the 2-part Button that tied in with The Flash, and I read that horrendous Double Date issue from, probably about 6 months to a year ago. And then I read this one. So I feel like had I been following this every other week like a lot of folks, this would have been... I'd be spitting nails right now because, I mean, you've invested so much time, so much money. I mean, we've had 50 issues and... what was it, those wedding specials? Didn't we get like 75 of those last month? I mean, there were a ton of them.
Oh, man. There was a ton of them.
And they were all $4 or $5 each, and here we are where nothing happened. And DC spoiled the damn thing in the news over the weekend. So it's like, what is the point? Yeah. But, you know, even with all that said, I didn't hate this as much as I thought I would, and as much as I think a lot of folks who have been following this a lot more closely did. I look at it kind of 2 ways, because, you know, you got King here, and he writes this where you want, you know, don't get me wrong, you want every issue to gain readers, especially an anniversary issue. You know, you have, you know, the big, you know, the was it the qualities of 25 or whatever, or the denominations of 25, where you want new readers to come in and check out your stuff. So it has to be somewhat accessible, but at the same time, I think you have a responsibility to your loyal readership who's been there all along the way, and I don't think he delivered to those loyal readers, and I totally understand why a lot of them might be a little disenfranchised right now.
Right, I definitely agree. I you know, with all those prelude specials, you know, it got me kind of excited about this, even though that I got really frustrated with that whole Booster Gold 3 arc or whatever, and that one really frustrated me. But I was like, okay, give me something good. And you've been anticipating this Bat-Cat wedding for quite some time now.
It's been almost a year.
They were boosting that in
almost a solid year. Wasn't it like issue 26 or something? I mean, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, have we been anticipating it? Really? Because I know I haven't.
We've been looking forward to looking at it in the rear view.
Yeah.
Right. That's definitely a feeling that we have now, right? But is it really in the rear view? Because Tom King took to Twitter and he said that this is going to be stretched out over 100 issues.
Lovely.
Oh,
lovely. So at least another 2 years of this, if they maintain the twice monthly shipping, or at least another. Yeah, was it? Yeah, because it'll be 24 issues a year. So yeah, so it'll a little over 2 years if they maintain the twice monthly shipping.
Right. And with all those prelude issues, you know, I think it fell flat. You know,
the prelude issues,
what happened here,
they didn't lead into this book at all. They led into the previous 2 issues where the Joker and Batman were fighting in a church. That's all they led to. It didn't have anything to do with this issue at all.
Right, and how did you like the second part of that, Bill? Because I know last time that we talked on my show, we talked about the first part of that book. What did you think about the second one?
I thought the second one was a little better because Batman wasn't in it. So because he doesn't have, in my opinion, King doesn't have Batman Bruce Wayne's voice at all. He's totally off. That first issue, 48, is a great example. He says one word. One word in the whole issue.
The entire issue.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And he sat there and knelt down and prayed with the Joker. But with that issue, though, I thought we saw the Joker bleed out. And then at the end of this issue, we've seen him there. And I think you were talking to me earlier today, Bill, and you said, what did you say to me in that text message earlier today?
Well, I don't remember offhand because I was at work, but the biggest thing that I came to a conclusion at this at the end, where she's kneeling in front of all these villains. This can't happen. This isn't real. A Bane might be there, and she might be there, but all these other villains, I think they're just showing you who was involved with this whole conspiracy. I don't think they're actually there, because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to have a Flashpoint Batman there.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Sure.
Right.
Or Skeets. Skeets is there? On the floor? Gotham Girl? I mean, we haven't seen Gotham Girl in how long?
And the Psycho Pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've even got, who else we got there? We got Scarface.
Yeah, Hugo
got
Strange
Riddler,
is there.
Joker.
Yeah.
Hugo Strange. The ventriloquist and Scarface. But he's sitting on the same, group of skulls that he did way back when in that story where he went to get Bane. Or basically, he went to get the Psycho Pirate to try to heal Gotham Girl. What, he bring those skulls back with him and they're just sitting in Arkham Asylum? Really? If this is truly the way it looks, it's totally ridiculous.
Right.
So I don't believe that's true.
There's...
That's what you see there actually is happening with all
That's
those.
That's a really good take on it, because like I said, I haven't followed this volume, so a lot of this is lost on me. So what I saw was just a group of villains, and maybe going into an arc, especially with the they're dropping the bat being broken. I didn't know if this was going to be not so much an exact take on Nightfall, but maybe like a Nightfall round 2 or something, which actually had me a little jazzed about what number 51 might give us. But now that you mention that the improbability of this scene actually occurring, you might be onto something there. But then again, I mean, it is comics, so who the hell knows?
Yeah. Now,
right.
that did get me. That did get me a little excited too about, because that's the only thing that I really liked about this issue is when they got to the end. You see, Bane is behind everything. He's behind Gotham Girl, and Gotham. If you've been reading the story, somebody gave them their powers. It was Bane.
Okay.
For whatever reason. From the very first issue, Batman has been set up by Bane. From him almost dying in the first issue to everything. And they've made this Batman depressed. They made this Batman, they changed his back history where he tried to commit suicide.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes. They brought real life into this character that you don't necessarily need, because when you're reading a book like comics in general, you don't want real life into your books. At least I don't. And that's the biggest thing that I disliked about this whole run is, he seems like he's depressed. He doesn't act like...
Yeah.
One instance of him not being Batman is when she went to steal a wedding dress a few issues ago. He didn't even know that she left. She didn't know... Batman would know everything. He knows everything.
Right.
So...
And I think they even touch on that a little bit, that he still doesn't even know that she did that in this issue. I don't know if you guys caught that there. But I have to agree with you, and I do like how your take on that. You know, I didn't even think about that. They could be, that all those villains there could be imaginary, and the only one that is there is Bane, and it could be a culmination of everybody who was who participated in this kind of thing. I do like that idea. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think, you know, this one did kind of let me down. I almost think I would have rather wanted, you know, a wedding, and then maybe have a bunch of villains, you know, jump into the wedding and kind of tear, and it'll be a big crazy, you know, them coming in and trying to ruin the wedding. But I guess that is predictable, and this, I guess, is not. And I understand where Tom King, his idea of where he was going with this, but I think it fell flat in my perspective. I think it fell flat.
Well, and it was very like ambiguous. I mean, we have them. You know, we have Bruce waiting for her, and then he jumps off the building, and then we jump right into the epilogue, and I don't know what the hell they're doing here. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it was symbolic, or like what Bill was saying, these figments of imagination. Is this symbolism? We had that Dear John letter with all these different takes on the two of them. So it was like, is this just another take, or is this the real life? It just,
right.
It really, you know, it did fall flat, but it also really took me out of it. I felt very detached by the end of it. Mm-hmm. Even, you know, starting off, I thought it was going to be pretty decent, even if the wedding wasn't going to happen, which I don't think a lot of us thought it was going to even a year ago. But the detachment here, and that Dear John letter with all the damn comments about slits in the eyes and blue eyes and blue eyes and blue eyes, it's just, I was just so over it by that point, where I really didn't even care about the wedding anymore. I just wanted to get to what was next. So whatever measure of poignancy the scene of him jumping off the roof was supposed to give us, it was lost on me.
Yeah, and it looks like they're in two different areas, you know. Yeah. In the beginning, they're like, let's do it here, let's do it on this roof, but yet they're on two separate buildings, two separate rooftops here, and this was, you were left to wonder, you were left to think and create something on your own and be like, oh, well, what's going on? Did they, because I don't know about you guys, when I read this for the first time, I didn't really look at that Dear John area. I just looked at the comic book area, the sequential art, where there was dialogue, right? And I looked at all that stuff, and I read the story, and I didn't look at all the Dear John letter type stuff. And when I read it, I was lost a little bit, and I said, "What the heck is going on here?" So I had to go back, and I had to read it all the way through, word for word, with the Dear John letters and all that stuff. And then I guess all you needed to do is read just those last couple of pages. I think I don't know if I was talking to both of you throughout the day. I don't know which one of you talked to me about that, and I was like, "That's right." I think it might have been you, Chris, that told me that that, you know, all you needed to do was read the last couple of pages of that Dear John letter, and you would find out what happened in this whole entire book.
But they needed to fill those pages, and they needed to facilitate all these guest artists popping in here. So that's why we got the slits of the eyes and the blue on the blue on the blue over and over and over.
I have one question. Is why does Batman feel that he needs to be married? Story-wise, why would he think he needs to be married or want to be married? That doesn't make sense to me, personally.
That's true. It doesn't.
It does feel a little off.
It does, especially when it's funny because we have a Batman who always says, you know, I work alone, I want to work alone, but he's always surrounded by kids. Right. You know, so it's maybe it's just that Batman is something of a walking contradiction, to where he wouldn't want the baggage of a wife or a partner, but is drawn to it because, you know, he is still human, and I think as humans we all kind of want that. But I really couldn't say, but it is very it is a very interesting. It is food for thought for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And it almost, I guess, if you're thinking of it in that deeper notion, I guess it would make sense that's the reason why he's going for his counterpart or somebody who is a villain at like somebody like Selena Kyle, Catwoman. I guess I would understand where that aspect of it, that he wants to feel that love, he wants to feel that connection. He's always gone through his life wanting to do things alone, and every time that he does involve anybody from the Bat family, he kind of has them at arm's length.
Yeah, he runs the risk of them getting hurt. Yeah.
And then when he does finally fall in love, he falls in love with the villain. I guess, okay, I can see that. I don't know about you guys, but some of this, I will have to say some of this artwork is pretty cool. I did like that one page there when they're in the Fox Hall and they're in that with all the books, and they kind of come together after getting ready and finally getting their suits and their dresses on, and I thought that page was actually kind of cool myself.
Oh, very striking page.
I'm looking at that page, so. Yeah, I will admit there's some really great art here, but then in some areas there's some really odd stuff.
I wasn't expecting to see Frank Miller in here. I mean, that was a little jarring. Yeah. I think we had some Paul Pope in here, who's great, but a lot of these Dear John pages, or these expositional pages, I suppose, were. They lent more to that detachment where it was like, okay, is this part of the story or is it not part of the story? I mean, we have these stylized takes on each character. We go from bits and pieces of history. We got that Ty Templeton page where it looks almost straight out of the animated series, but not. I mean, it just really that really lent to my detachment from the entire endeavor.
I see. I see where you're coming from there. I did like that page with Miller on there. That was actually I like a good Miller Batman. I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, a lot of people are saying Tom King has humanized his characters, and I can see where people say that and things of that nature, like the comment that you made earlier, Bill. How they comic books have not had that. People just go, it's fantasy, it's pretend, it's make believe or whatever, and people always die and they come back to life and stuff. I could see where people come and say, he has made his characters more realistic and more humanized and things of that nature. But I'm just not a big Tom King fan. I don't like the way his writing is. I just can't get on board with it.
Well, he definitely has his strengths and weaknesses, and unfortunately, I'm looking at the what is it, that comic roundup site where you can see the at a glance scores, and there's a lot of 10 out of 10s, and there is always a lot of 10 out of 10s on Tom King work.
Right.
And then I see some very low scores as well, and part of me is wondering if part of those low scores are part of a reaction to the 10 out of 10 review culture that we're currently in, where instead of just wiping a lot of those away as nonsense, because a lot of them are 10 out of 10s simply for please retweet me, Tom King. I sweep those away, and I try to look at the ones that, if you give it a 9, it's like, okay, I'm going to take you a little bit more seriously than a 10, because 10 to me means perfect. And if you think this is perfect, I don't want to see what you think is imperfect. Because this.
Right.
As I said, I didn't hate this as much as most, but I do see the faults in it. I made it through the story. If I were able to cut out the Dear John parts, I probably would have enjoyed it a whole lot more. But it's just I don't know how much of this is a reaction to the like a blowback to the main reaction of the cult of personality around this writer, and I try to separate myself from that unsuccessfully most of the time, but just trying to take it as a case by case basis where I'm not thinking about King's Mr. Miracle. I'm not thinking about his vision. I'm not thinking about anything else he wrote. I'm just trying to think about not even the Double Date issue from a year ago, just this issue here. Just in a vacuum, what the writing was, and I think there were parts where it was strong but out of character, and there were other parts where it was very, very purple and maudlin.
Okay. I do have to say, the visuals and the the relationships between Alfred and Batman. I think this was probably the strongest that I've seen. If I were to give Tom King a little bit of praise, I think this would be the strongest that I've seen him write in quite a while. And this is coming from somebody that absolutely hated the Booster Gold 3 arc, and it was just that writing was just too much. And even Batman 49 was kind of just a little I was grinding my teeth a little bit there too. But I will say, this I felt the connection between him and Alfred here, and I will say he this was a little bit stronger than I've seen him lately.
Sure. No, that was a very you get like an ounce of heartwarming in a pretty large bucket, and that was the ounce of heartwarming was the nice person to person between Bruce and Alfred. That felt real, and that's the first time in a long time that I've felt that Batman felt real. In the way that we're used to him being real, not as in real life, but as in how we know him as a character.
Right. And that feels more, Batman in character than the most of this run. Just that one scene. I mean, sure. We get Kite Man thrown in again. How many times have we seen Kite Man? If you've been reading
a pet character,
it's been at least 12 issues. I don't know how many times he's been in Arkham and escaped.
Because he was part of the intermissions in the War of the Jokes and Riddles, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Where you saw his backstory and everybody. That was one of the best issues ever, where you felt for him. And
oh man.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff. Yeah. I mean, this issue did. It has its ups and downs. So there's some great points here and there. Kind of salt and peppered in there a little bit. But all in all, it was okay. It wasn't such a horrible issue for me. And I'm coming from, I had to read this a few times to kind of get a real feel of it, because when I first read it, I was like, oh man, this is horrible. But I had to read it a few different times so that I can, get a real feel of it. And I was like, okay, back off a little bit. Don't bring your own feelings into this. I know how much you dislike some of these people on here, but think of it in a different way. Come at it at a different angle and see what it is for what it is. And with all these great artists on here, awesome. I love that. Mm-hmm. Did we need some of these pages? Maybe not, because it did get a little convoluted there a little bit with with the blue on blue on blue on blue kind of stuff. But all in all, it wasn't as bad as some of the other issues that I've read from this run.
Yeah. I've got I've got a little thing that I usually say when I'm reading a book that I don't outright like, where I don't outright love, I should say. Where I say that I don't think any writer wakes up in the morning and says to themselves, I'm going to write the worst comic book ever today. I don't think that that's something that any writer does. And I hate to harp on the 10 out of 10 culture, but what does a writer have to improve if he's being told he's perfect?
If
someone's if someone's telling me that, I know that I muddle my way through podcasts because I've got the voice that I've got and I've got the mind that I've got where it's just everywhere. If somebody told me you're perfect, I don't think I have any kind of need to improve. Where I think he's being told he's perfect all the time, so why change what's perfect? because then you're just going to break it.
Yeah.
And I hate to harp on that because I do harp on that, but I don't think he woke up saying I'm going to piss a lot of people off. I don't think that was his goal. I think he thinks that he's telling the best story he can tell, and he's got a lot of people telling him that he is telling the perfect story. So what are you going to do at that point, right?
I mean, and really, when you're writing a book of any kind, you're going to have a lot of people that love it and a lot of people that hate it. But there seems to be a lot of people that think this is every issue is the best comic they ever read. That's
Instant
what they're
classic.
Yes.
Yep.
And I tell you what, I can't remember the last time I've read a book that I would rate 10 out of 10. Really?
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, because I think about what the comic reviewer's 10 out of 10 shelf looks like. Like, is it Watchmen, Kingdom Come, and Batman number 48? You know, it's a Batman Volume 3 number 48. It's like, is that what your perfect 10 shelf looks like? I just don't get it.
Right. And you know, we're human. So we all make mistakes daily, and I'm reminded by that, you know, every 5 minutes by my wife, you know.
Absolutely.
And so thanks. But you know, we're only human, and not everything we do, nothing we do is perfect. So I don't think, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to give anybody a perfect 10. I may come close. I may come as close as a 9 or a 9.5. I don't know if I could even get to a 9.5, but as close as I can get to a 10, it would probably most likely be a 9. Just because, you know, there's always going to be something that you there's some kind of misstep, and that's just our human nature.
Sure.
Right? And that's just what it is. And so for people to be given something a 10 out of a 10, it's outlandish to me.
Yeah, especially when it's every single issue.
Right. And it's the same people giving the same, you know, like you said, it's just to get retweeted.
Yep.
And they do it so many different times. Oh, I love this. I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to mention your name on Twitter so that you can see it, you know.
Absolutely.
And so, but, you know, I don't know. So, what would you guys, should we bring it up yet, or should we keep talking about it? Should we bring up our scores, or
however
should we
you want
keep
to do
talking
it.
about
however
this?
you want to do it. We can do scores and then go back into the story, or we can do more story
Cool.
and then scores, whatever you want to do.
All right, then let's do this. So, Bill, let's start off with you. What would you give it as a rating?
I guess I would give this a 6.5. And as I said,
You stole my number.
Did I? No. And a lot of that is the potential going on that, you know, a lot of this was set up as, oh, the wedding is coming, you know, they put the invitations in previous issues, and it was all built up. Mm-hmm. And now that that's out of the way, maybe we can get the actual story of what is actually happening. Like in, as we said before, when Batman broke his back, that storyline was Batman was physically broken. To me, at least what I got out of this is Batman is mentally broken. When he says,
I'm so glad you said that.
The bat is broken. And that's kind of exciting for me, because I haven't been very excited about this series at all. And I want to have something that gets me excited.
You're looking at my notes?
Right. No.
That's exactly what I was going to say. This is the first time I've read a Batman story in a very long time where I'm actually kind of, I don't want to say excited, but I'm interested, and I will read the next issue, where I couldn't say that about very many comic books, period, these days. So that ending, the emotional breaking of the bat, as long as it's addressed immediately, I'm on board. But if it like goes into hibernation for an arc, it might lose me.
Yeah. So you would give it a 6.5 as well, Chris?
I'd go 6. You could probably talk me up to a 6.5. Yeah.
Okay. See, I think I'm, you know, and for me, not being such a Tom King fan, everybody, buckle in, because I'm gonna give it a 7.
How about that?
I'm gonna give it a 7, guys, because only and I think it's gonna be because this is probably one of the more strong issues that I feel. If we're coming off of those Batman 48 and 49 and the whole Booster Gold, that's definitely stronger than Booster Gold arc. that's a given. But so solely because of that, I'm gonna give it a 7. I do like a whole lot of this art. They have some amazing artists. Some of my favorite artists are here, and I think. I probably would be a 6.5, but because of this artwork and because it's a little bit stronger than usual, it gave me a little bit boost there, and just like you said, it piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. I read Catwoman number 1. And I'm going to be talking about that pretty soon here on my show. Not to give too much of a spoiler here about what I talked about there, but that one is, I'm going to tell you guys, that one's a great one. If you haven't read it, read it. And what you guys want for Batman, they kind of did for Catwoman in that one, and so I'm there with you. I want them to address it. I want them to address how emotionally distraught he is mentally. If I've gone. I don't know if I've told anybody this before, but I was married and divorced and remarried to the wife that I have currently, and I was emotionally broken, mentally broken, and you know what, guys, physically as well, because I couldn't take care of myself the way I did. Mm-hmm. And if they can show me that that's what's going on here, if he really was in love with this woman, show me. Absolutely. So I'm definitely interested in the next one. So yeah, I mean, who was your guys' favorite artist on this one?
You want to go, Bill?
I would probably say Tony Daniel, but I'm a big Tony Daniel fan, but there's so many artists on here that that Frank Miller kind of threw me, as I said earlier. That kind of threw me off a little. I didn't expect to see
Wasn't
that.
expecting it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I like the was it Michael Janin here, the main artist?
Uh-huh.
I don't know where this guy came from, but he's fantastic. He seemed to pop up over the past few years, and I've never been disappointed. I think he's phenomenal.
I think I'm looking at it now. I don't know how I'm always butchering people's names, so forgive me if I butcher this. Bermejo. I
Lee
really
Bermejo?
like that one. Yeah, this one is. I really like the artwork there, and the whole look of the Batman in this one is. I love it. It's awesome. Give me some more books with this guy on it, and I'll give you a 10.
There you go.
and I'll tweet about it so that he can retweet me.
Absolutely, you got to do that. That's part of the deal.
Right. That's yeah. Slide me some cash under the door, and I'll do it. All right. So, you know what? All in all, this was actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It was a little bit let down because they didn't get married. But, we got a lot of stuff that piqued our interest. A lot of stuff that, a lot of great artists. I am very interested in the next issue. I'm hopeful. I don't know if I'm hopeful for another 50 issues, but I'm definitely hopeful for the next one, and I want to see where Batman is at this state here.
Sure.
All right, you know what? I appreciate you guys coming on. This was actually pretty cool. We've been trying to... I know you and I, Chris, have been trying to do this for quite some time. We failed on that one. Me and Bill were able to record a little bit there. We got some more stuff planned in the future, and I appreciate both of you guys coming on. I always appreciate you, Bill. I appreciate you, Chris. You guys are pretty cool guys. You guys are interesting fellows there, and I do, if you guys can, go out there and listen to Too Old, Too New podcast and check out Chris's show there with Chris and Reggies Cosmic Tredmill. Do you guys, Bill, you want to plug your show really quick?
Well, we're Too Old, Too New. We talk about 2 old comic books, 2 new comic books every episode. We're not a review podcast. We talk about majority of the stuff we discuss is stuff we enjoy. So you never hear us complaining or yelling or anything like that. And
That's a good way to be.
All right, cool.
On our show,
yeah, because I do a whole lot of complaining.
That sometimes comes with the job. When you take them as they come, you're not going to like everything. But when you pick and choose like we do, it's you can get away with it. On our show, Chris and Reggies Cosmic Tredmill, every single week we talk about an old comic from the yesteryear of publishing. It could be from just about anywhere, just about any time. This week we're going to be discussing a controversial issue written by Devin Grayson, in which Nightwing gets something bad happens to Nightwing. We'll leave it at that. We also have our show Weird Comics History, where we talk about weird things that went down in history. We have some multi-part episodes where we discuss anything from the Comics Code Authority's legacy and launch to underground comics to the mysteries of Marvel Man / Miracle Man. We have a real good time with both shows. They're both very research intensive, but that's kind of right up our alley.
That's awesome. I appreciate it, guys. I love both of you guys' shows, and I enjoy listening to them both. You're welcome. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys being on. This is Joey Galvez here. We're going to be signing off here with Bill Beer and Chris. And, thank you, guys. I hope you guys come back. And this was actually pretty fun. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Thanks for having me. It gave me a reason to read this book.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it gave me a reason to complain about this book.
There you go.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll see you later. You guys have a great day. And, stay tuned here, guys. I'm going to talk about Catwoman #1 next. And you guys can hear my review about that one. I really liked the artwork here on that one. And you just stay tuned and check it out. All right. We'll see you later.
See ya.
See you.
Oh, Catwoman. Catwoman, will you never learn?
All right, you guys ready for Catwoman #1 here? We got Joelle Jones as the writer and artist here, and Laura Allred as the colorist here. I have to do this. The colors are actually pretty cool here. And we got on the cover there, it says, read Batman 50 or I'll spoil the whole thing. And actually, when you get into this book and you read it, there's not much of a spoiler in this one. I guess you guys have to read between the lines kind of thing, and you have to, because they don't really tell you exactly what's eating Selena Kyle here and what's getting at her. She's just super pissed kind of feeling, and she's just partying and gambling and just she's got herself on a night on the town, right? So that's what we open up to here. We see Catwoman in her Catwoman suit, and she's shooting a gun, and it looks like she shoots a couple of cops there. And then you see, her gambling and stuff like that here. You get a little bit of a insight to where she is. It's some kind of Latin country or something of that nature, but they do speak English as well. Maybe they aren't. I don't know. So, well, anyway, we see, this is what's going on here. She's gambling and she's shooting these guys, right? And that happens for a couple of pages, couple panels here. And then you see her, she's in her day clothes now, and she's walking about. And then I guess, she thinks that she can get away. She's not doing it. She didn't really, nobody really knows her. And she's like, just a couple, 2 hours to kill. 9 o'clock, 2 hours till the table's open. So she's about to go gamble some more here, right? And throughout the book, you kind of see that she's like, I haven't slept in a few days, and I still can't sleep kind of thing. And then you see here, you hear a bunch of sirens go off, and a spotlight hits her, and it says VHPD. So I'm sure we're gonna hear out where she is exactly later on. So they, the police here pulls up, and they're, police hands in the air, don't move. And one of the officers says, Selena Kyle, VH Police, you are under arrest. Larceny, evading arrest, and 2 counts of murder of police officers in the line of duty. And he says, when are you, we know about your alias, Catwoman, and have overwhelming evidence that, and she kind of, it gives them a quick elbow to under the jaw and knocks him down, and they, other cops start to pursue her, and so this guy's on the ground, and she just starts dipping out pretty quick here, and she jumps on the subway, and the subway, it says doors are closing in English, and then it says it in Spanish. So she's somewhere where they speak Spanish as well, and she jumps. She does some pretty crazy moves here to get into this door. She hops over some guys. She does a crazy flip into the car here, the train car here that she's trying to get into. And throughout this book, you see the governor and his wife here, and they're kind of they're on a news channel, and they're talking about how the wife has been under scrutiny, and how they've all kind of been under scrutiny and stuff like that, and they kind of talk about how, they're all following. She's got an entourage, and they're following his wife, and it almost feels like the governor is not in control because they're all following her and not him. And she's sick because they're talking about a transfusion here. And then it says you have your blood transfusion and your injections till 11, they say. And she starts taking off her wig, and she starts taking off contacts and eyelashes, and then she starts taking off out dentures, and then her nose, and then you see a panel here where she just looks all tore apart. What she has no nose, no eyelashes. It looks like she was in some kind of accident or got burnt up or something. And she says, her 2 sons come in, and they say, Mother, you are looking well this evening. And she says, cut the crap. You two explain yourselves. They say, we gave very clear instructions to that no one was to be harmed, but then the mother interrupts and says, let the girl speak for herself. And she says, I know I messed up, but it was crazy out there. They kept shooting, and then somebody jumps in and says, Miss Creel, your donor is ready. And then she goes and sits down. There's a woman sitting in a chair, and they start the blood transfusion, and she says, keep talking, girl, and take that stupid mask off. So she takes the mask off, and this girl is dressed as Catwoman here, right? And it looks like she's an African American girl here, right? So and then she says, Miss Creel, and then you flip you flip the panel here, and there's somebody here, and he says, you knew him? He says, yeah, we were at the academy together. So, I don't know. I think this could be a detective or something, because he's behind the police line, and they kind of talk about things here, and so they're talking about the police officers who got shot, right? And then now you see Selena again. She's walking towards a pawn shop, and then she walks in, and so now she says, hello, Carlos, Linda, you here? And she goes in. There's a young man, looks like he's playing video games, and an old blind lady, it looks like. And she says, you still not sleeping? And she says, no, unfortunately. And they say, a package came for you today. And she's like, all right. You should try warm milk, the old lady says, to get some sleep. And or whiskey, you hear? And she says, I will, thanks. And so she goes up to a room. There's tons of locks on this room, so she opens them all up, goes in, and she's a creepy cat lady because she's got 10 cats or so there. and then she see that she opens up a closet or something, and there is, or it could be a storeroom or something, because there's tons of boxes, and she's got a TV in there. It looks like a storage unit maybe, and she's staying in a storage unit. I'm not sure, because this is pretty crazy there, because there's a bunch of boxes and some metal racks holding them up, and there's a TV in there and a chair. So she opens up this package, and she's listening to the news about what had happened to the officers there. And now she sees that she opens up the box, and there's a letter here, and it says I took it upon myself and to forward your belongings. I'm very sure they will be missed, Pennyworth. And it's her Catwoman outfit here. And the next panel, you see her crying, and she grabs it and she throws it across the room, and she falls to the floor sobbing, and then you see the news anchor here, and he says, and is believed to be armed. The state police are reporting the suspect is yet to be apprehended. And then they show a picture of Catwoman, and she's like, it seems though the world just can't leave me alone, because she gets pretty pissed, and she says, that's it. And she puts on her outfit, and you see her out there, and it's about midnight, I guess, because that's what you see here. And she sees a police helicopter, and she says, I wonder. And then she says, bingo. You see her hanging from a rooftop, and then there's another woman dressed as Catwoman. She throws her whip and takes a gun out of the imposter's hand, and they start fighting. She says, nice outfit, too bad it looks better on me. And then they start fighting, and this imposter kind of gets her with an elbow, the same kind of elbow that she threw at the detective. And she says, you wish, you old chick. And then Selena Kyle says old, as she's bleeding from the nose. This chick's running off, and she runs after her, and she's like, an amateur got a hit in. I'm definitely not firing on all cylinders. But even with zero sleep, I'm sure I can take this chick out quickly. Starting with this, and you see the chick run into a room, into a doorway, and she runs in, and she says, starting with this copycat. And Selena Kyle runs in too, and then there's a room full of 20 or 30 women all dressed up as Catwoman here, and they all have, and there's more Catwoman suits and outfits and goggles and whips sitting on a table, and this is where we left off here. So, this book was really fast paced and quick moving. There was not, I really liked the pacing, and I did like how it ended, how it started, and everything in between. It was just pretty awesome, and how they introduced the characters and all this good stuff. And I all the way through, I liked it a whole lot. I'm definitely not gonna drop a 10 on this one, because we're all human, and no book can be perfect. I'm sure I can find something here off about it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some proportions. I can't tell. I'm not really going to say there's some proportions off here, but I'm definitely not going to give it a 10, because if it's a 10, that means it's completely perfect and there's no mistakes. And we're all human and we're not perfect, so no book that I ever review is ever going to get a 10. It might come 9.5, but never a 10. So this one, I probably will give it. I'll probably give it a 9. I liked it myself. I liked it a whole lot. I think the only thing I can say is that I don't like is that she has too many cats. That's creepy, right? If she's gone all day playing the tables and drinking all night long, who's cleaning up that cat poop? Just saying. That old blind lady's not. So I do want to see what's going on with all these copycats here, and who that crazy lady with the without the nose, with the no face kind of thing is. I want to see who that is and why she has so much power here wherever they are. I want to find out where she actually is, and stuff. So we know that she is going on this binge, because obviously the wedding got called off and she couldn't be in Gotham. But, Alfred and Batman know where she is, I guess, because they were able to get her address and send a package. So I did like this book all the way through. Writing was actually pretty good. Artwork was awesome. I do like that the writer was also the artist, so they definitely knew what they were doing with this book. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. That is going to be my Catwoman book, and this is going to be it for the night. These are all the books, and hopefully you guys enjoyed Batman number 50. Was it all that you guys thought it would be? Probably not, right? So, all right. So this is going to be the books for this week. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Tune in tomorrow. Same cat time, same cat channel.
All right, everybody, that's going to be the end of the show. I appreciate you tuning in and listening to this episode. This is our special episode, the Batgate episode. So I want to show my appreciation to Bill Beer and Chris from Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Tredmill, and Bill from the Too Old Too New podcast. So you guys have a good time and have a wonderful evening.
That's a wrap.
For this episode was provided by Fortress of Graves at fortressofgraves.bandcamp.com.